Michael!
Oh my God, what?
I'm bored, Michael. Like, really bored.
Okay, well, you know what, God, can you start a flood or something? Because I could literally care less about what we're doing right now.
But then I'll have to make people again, and I'll have to give them, like, animals and land, and it's just... You know what? It's too much work, Michael.
Okay, sir, you created the entire universe in 6 days, okay? And then you flooded it, all of it, for no reason. And you're telling me that you cannot be to do all that shit again?
Look, I don't want anything catastrophic right now.
Okay, then what do you want from me? How is this my problem?
Can't you just, like, summon another little demon for me to toy around with?
I gave you lazy for this specific reason. What happened?
Well, I put her in her own little pocket dimension, and now she's just messing around and not listening to me. And I don't know why she has to be so disrespectful.
Wow, gee, it's almost like she's like, I don't know, a demon or something.
Enough with the back talk! I swear to my son, you archangels all think you're so much better than me.
Okay, well, excuse me, but Lucifer doesn't represent all of us, you know, and that happened, like, millions of years ago. Get the fuck over yourself. Do you want me to bring you up another imp for you to play with or something?
That would be acceptable.
You know, with all probabilities, God, this is probably a really bad idea. You're lucky I don't care. Belia. Behemoth. Asmodeus. Satas.
What the fuck, Richard?
Oh my dad, Michael! I mean, ooh, that looks cute.
Ha! A Wendigoon. Yeah, fuck it, that'll do.
Oh, God, what in the hell was that? What am I doing here? What?
Hello, imp.
Michael?
Sup?
Michael, where am I?
Well, Earth, for now. Until you give me a reason to get rid of you, in which case I am not the one, so don't give me a reason.
Alright, so what do you want with me?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You see him?
So?
Sweet God, he's gonna hang me!
Oh no. We haven't done any hanging since the Crusades.
Then what do you want from me?
Yeah, God's a little bored. And we both remember what happened last time God was bored. Right?
Yeah, I remember.
Excellent, that mean we're on the same page. Now listen, I'm just gonna need you to entertain him for a little bit. Just play with him, make sure he doesn't flood the earth or whatever.
Now wait, what do I get out of this?
Oh, nothing. Yeah, I just bring little imps like you up here so you can entertain the big guy so that I don't have to do any of the hard work. Make sense?
Michael, I don't know if I'm really qualified.
Oh, trust me, honey, I think you'll be perfect. Besides, it's better than sitting around in hell doing nothing. You'll at least have a purpose.
Yeah, I guess it's better than being dead.
Okay, good, great. I love this. Okay, so God, what exactly do you want to do with him? Because you can't cause too much damage. I really do not want Lucifer finding out because I cannot stand his lectures.
I want to put him in a Hawaiian shirt.
Oh my fucking God. Oh my fucking God. I know I said. Okay, yeah, no, sounds good. Little buddy, you're gonna need a little bit of a costume change. Let me just, God, why the Hawaiian shirt? I don't get it.
Oh, just look at him! I want to post him online. Give him a camera. Tell him to make funny little videos in this shirt. This is gonna be so funny. He looks like a Kindle version of Fluffy.
Yeah, sure, okay, whatever. Here. Just Go make videos, do funny shit, be funny, do cute things. I don't know, just post it on the internet, make God happy, okay? That's all he wants from you.
So wait, I can just post whatever I want to on the internet?
I'll do whatever, just be funny.
Well, I've always wanted to make a My Chemical Romance video.
No! What are you, stupid?
Never mind, I'm sorry.
I want iceberg videos.
He wants iceberg videos, specifically.
I don't even know what that's supposed to mean.
Yeah, don't worry about it, you'll figure it out. Have fun!
I'm satisfied. You really did outdo it this time.
Yeah, I'm glad you're happy. Now, if you don't mind me, I got things to do.
What things? You don't do things.
Yes, I do. I take long, enthusiastic walks through the woods.
And summon incredibly dangerous Native American creatures to make YouTube videos on the internet.
They can be very long, enthusiastic walks. This is normal, right? This is normal. This isn't weird at all. This is completely normal. You guys are used to this, right? Like, this isn't totally, like, creepy or weird or oddly parasocial in any way. No, absolutely not. This is completely fine, right? Guys, right?
Oh no, they probably think I'm a fucking weirdo. I didn't even need to do this, man. I did not need to dress up like this. I'm making a stupid internet video. What the fuck am I doing with my life? Why do I do this? Why?
What is a subject that, without preparation, you could do an entire presentation on right now? We all claim to be an expert in something. We all have a certain niche that we need to know absolutely everything about to master the information. For me, that niche is art, and all types of art, because I want to learn how to do all types of art. Shameless plug! Or my other niche is learning about the entirety of Tekken lore. And even if you don't think that you're an expert in anything particular, even just like a casual hobby could be a source of your expertise, like video games, or starting a collection, or reading, or journaling, whatever it may be. Even if it's something as out there as explaining the connection between 50 Shades of Grey and the fact that Gerard Way started My Chemical Romance after he coincidentally missed out on his flight that was rammed into the Twin Towers. Go look it up. Or if you even want to go more specific, we can talk about how Kazuya Mishima banged a PETA activist who was trying to stop him from creating boxing kangaroos. And they had a son who is literally the devil from the Bible. I know there's no demand. I know there is no reason for it. There is no reason for me to make a video about the entirety of Tekken lore. But I will do it. It will be longer than my Ollie London video. I don't fucking care. Anyways, not what we were talking about. Whenever you're trying to explain these niches to someone without realizing it, you kind of turn this explanation into a presentation or a story. I mean, you are passionate about this subject and you want to be entertaining. I mean, how else are you going to explain why you're so interested in this thing unless you make it entertaining to the people that you're explaining it to? And that's what makes the best teachers great, because not only are they passionate about the subject that they're teaching, but they almost have like this entertainment sense to it. Or they try to put their subjects of interest into practice so that you can understand why it's so fascinating. Being a YouTuber for me is being a teacher and talking about things that fascinate me, but also being an entertainer. Because otherwise, if I'm not at least a tiny bit entertaining, my audience isn't going to be interested in learning about this thing that I wrote an entire script for and filmed for like hours on end, and then to edit that whole video only for people not to be really that interested because I'm boring. Teaching is storytelling, and storytelling is getting a message across through a narrative. And understanding this is to understand why this YouTuber we're going to be talking about today is probably one of my favorites right now. Not only is this YouTuber a good entertainer and teacher, but also a wonderful storyteller that gets you interested in things that you've never heard of, or things that you thought you wouldn't have any interest in before, but you do now. And if that sounds like the type of content that you'd like like to see? Then let me introduce to you YouTube's greatest storyteller, Wendigoon. Wendigoon's channel is an enigma. It is the most diverse channel on YouTube right now, and it's fascinating how he's gotten to where he is now. Whether that be talking about niche history, to stories you read in high school, to disturbing movies, Wendigoon's videos don't ever seem to unperform. He can make a 30-minute video about, like, conspiracy theories and get a decent amount of views, and then the next video is a 3-hour video talking about Dante's Inferno, and somehow that overperforms the last video he made, despite its size and content being massively larger and vastly different. Isaiah somehow has created a YouTube channel where he can legitimately talk about whatever the hell he wants, and people will be interested. Part of it has to do with Wendigoon's presentation, but we'll talk more in depth about that later. In this section, I'm purely talking about the diversity and the niche of his videos. Everything that Wendigoon talks about are either things that most people have already heard of, but they don't know, like, the nuances of it, or things that no one has ever heard of. People's desire to learn new things is why they tune into Wendigoon's channel. He's always talking about something new. And anytime I tune in, I legitimately feel like I've actually learned something. And even if the video seems like something I wouldn't be necessarily interested in at all, I would tune in anyways just to see what it was about, and then end up actually enjoying the video and watching the whole thing, and felt like I genuinely learned something that I didn't think I'd be interested in at all. To show the diversity of Wendigoon's content as a whole, I created a tier list of sorts of some of my favorite videos of his and ranked them on a range of how much I learned, or if I already knew the subject, how interested I was in Wendigoon's reteaching of that information.
I'm gonna fuck you softly. I'm gonna screw you gently.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the Wendigoon video tier list. Today joining us is my new best friend. The audible screech I had in public when I saw this. Today we're going to be rating some of my favorite Wendigoon videos. Now, obviously not every single Wendigoon video is on here, because this is my tier list, this is nobody else's, and all of the selections here are videos that I have personally watched that I thought were his best works. So we're gonna rank them now and see where they all fall. To explain the tiers a little better, the top tier right here is I actually learned something, added a wrinkle to my brain. Basically, that means I go into the video not knowing the subject at all, and then I come out actually, like, genuinely learning something, like, oh, wow, I learned what that was today. That's cool. This one is I already knew the subject, but I like Wendigoon's video on it. Basically, this is me going and being like, oh, I already know what this subject is. And then by the time I come out of the video, I'm like, oh, Wendigoon actually did a really well job, like, explaining this subject. So I think that's really cool. This next one is I knew the subject, but I didn't like Wendigoon's conclusion. We're not gonna obviously agree with everything that Wendigoon does on the internet. He's not like a god, he's not perfect, so obviously there's gonna be a lot of videos that I don't necessarily agree with, and that's totally fine. I'm not really sure how to feel. This is just middle bar, you know what I mean? These are videos that I watched. I didn't feel negative about the video nor positive. It's just like, that was a video. That was cool. This final tier is gonna need a little bit of explanation. I didn't learn anything, but it's because I used the video to help me sleep. See, it's not the fault of Isaiah that I did not understand the videos that he makes, because he's a really good teacher and he organizes his videos well and they're great. My thing is that sometimes I watch YouTube videos to help me sleep at night. I don't know if anyone else is like that. And sometimes, coincidentally, since, you know, Wendigoon's videos are so long, they're good background noise to help me sleep. So it's not that I didn't like the video or didn't learn anything. It's mainly the fact that I fell the fuck to sleep. I don't know, some dude rambling about, like, conspiracy theories for hours and telling me how cool giants are just puts me in a snooze. I don't know. This first one that we're looking at is not the 9 types of angels ones. That's this one right here. This one is the, like, biblical theories iceberg, which is funny to me because it's like, I didn't think that people like theorize that much about the Bible as much as like Isaiah points out that they do. I always thought like people were pretty like set in like what the Bible means and like how the Bible is set up, but apparently there are like so many stories of the Bible that like people theorize like the canonical timeline of it, which is funny because it kind of sounds like you're treating the Bible like it's an ARG, and I think that's kind of funny. I grew up like Christian Catholic, so I already kind of knew like some of these stories already, but a lot of these theories were quite new, so I learned something, but I already kind of knew the subject matter, so I'm just gonna put that one right here. Gemini Home Entertainment. I feel like the best video out there on the subject of this is probably the one that Nexpo made. That one's a super long watch too. I'm gonna put this one right here. I believe this one's kind of an older one of Isaiah's, because I think I watched the Nexpo video first, and then watching that video was like, okay, let me watch Wendigoon's video, and I realized that his video was a bit older, which is totally fine. I swore I thought this came out way sooner than I remember it coming out, but this one is the Rockefeller case of one of the Rockefellers. I believe it was like one of the sons. He gets cannibalized and murdered by some cannibalistic tribe. I did not know that. I kind of like knew the name Rockefeller because I knew that they were like some sort of oil tycoon. Did not know that one of their family members was murdered. That's kind of wild. So I'm gonna put that up in I added a wrinkle to the brain because I learned that shit. Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. The Mystery Flesh Pit is so interesting. It's one of those ARGs that is like one of the deepest rabbit holes you'll probably ever go down. And if you want like a good introduction to how deep this whole thing is set up, this whole story, it's like SCP levels of like crazy deep. That's how long this thing is. And if you want a good breakdown or a good introduction video, Wendigoon's does it justice, I think. So I'm gonna put this one up here. This one immediately goes into learning something new. Garbo the Spy not being taught enough in history classes is honestly a crime, because like the dude single-handedly like won, not won the war, because that's kind of like hyperbolic, right? The fact that he had so much impact on World War II as is kind of wild to think about, right? Because it's like, how do we not know about who this guy is, and how am I learning about it through a Bible studies teacher on the internet? This next one is the political compass video, all of like every political ideology. And I believe that this video is a good representation of a lot of Wendigoon's work, which is an unbiased take on a subject that can be very, very polarizing, especially like political alignments and political like takes. I learned a lot from this video. I learned that like the current political compass that we have is incredibly flawed. This alignment system that Isaiah presents us with shows us not only every single political ideology that there is, but also the joke ideologies, which I didn't even know was a thing. I mean, I already knew about like quite a bit about the political compass going into this video, but not to the extent of like, you know, how many ideologies there are. So because of that, I think we're gonna put that right here. This whole video is just Wendigoon listening to the album of like what it's like to go through dementia. And I'm gonna put that one right here because it just kind of made me uncomfortable, honestly. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and the crazy story behind it, because I feel like in history, it's already kind of well known that a lot of our history is whitewashed, right? And it's told in a certain way to try to paint people as black and white figures, as these were good guys and bad guys, right? The assassination behind this guy was not well coordinated at all. These fucking dudes, right? I believe that they were pretty young too. Like from what I remember from Wendigoon's video, the people who behind the assassination were also like young freedom fighters, like they were like just turned 18. So these fucking kids are trying to like assassinate this dude, and they have no fucking clue what the hell they're doing. And the fact that we are taught that this assassination is the start of the war, like it was one of the catalyst things that started World War II, the biggest war on the planet. And it's like, dude, the circumstances of how this even became a thing, bizarre. And the fact that we treat it so seriously, it's like, no, that is a crime. This one is the 38-minute war, which I'm immediately coming up here. I have rewatched this video a number of times, and it still is so bizarre that we did not learn about this particular war. Because the thing is, right,
and I'll talk about this in the video later, right, that we learn about the same wars over and over and over again in history class, and that's fine because it's like the concept of like learning from history or else you're doomed to repeat it, right? The problem is we're already kind of doing that, so, but we have like random little wars like this, that only last 38 minutes, and it's like, wouldn't that just be so much more interesting to learn about that stuff? Honestly, this one is Paradise Lost, which is a story that I've kind of heard in passing. It is basically the devil's perspective of the Garden of Eden story. And I thought that was pretty interesting, and I think that Isaiah does a very good job. Again, it's that attachment he has to religion without like shoving it down your throat. So I'm going to put that in. I actually learned something, and I added a wrinkle to my religious brain.
And remember, kids, the next time that somebody tells you the government wouldn't do that, oh yes they would.
I'm a little worried because part of me like feels like I should button all the way up, but part of me wants to like keep at least a couple buttons down because that's how he wears his Hawaiian shirts in his videos. But also I don't want to show off my tits because I'm trying to be a Wendigoon man. Yeah, honey, sure, get your tits out. So, outside of Wendigoon's research and overall demeanor in his content, what really attracts a lot of people to his long-informed videos is the way he presents himself and his character. And I'm not even talking about, like, his thick, luscious hair, or his perfectly trimmed beard, or those eyes. Sorry, there was a point to this. I was gonna say something. Where was I? Where were we? Wendigoon's hot and I would suck him. Consensually. This is a joke. Don't take it seriously. I was just kidding. I have a boyfriend, see? But Wendigoon, as normal as he presents himself, has this cadence that I honestly don't see in other YouTubers. I've seen a lot of people in his community call him a daddy figure, both figuratively and in a sexual way, but I don't think that really fits, honestly. I think he more comes across as, like, the professor type. No, not like that! Bunch of fucking filthy animals. What is wrong with you? This is a kid's channel.
Huh?
Wendigoon's hot and I would suck him.
Oh my god!
This is a kid's channel. No, YouTube, don't take that seriously. No, it's not. The internet is just one giant sexual roleplay. Teaching is something that I think through enough schooling and through enough experience that anyone could reasonably do, and they could do a good job. I think anyone can be a good teacher, but to be a great teacher takes a specific talent. Isaiah talks about how he used to be a Bible teacher, which I can't imagine paid much of anything, honestly, but he has some teaching experience in the real world, and he applies that to his channel. And it results in him honestly being able to teach me a subject without it feeling like your typical high school lecture. The beauty in how Wendigoon's videos are is that he has this sort of way to present a topic like he was speaking to the audience like they were a friend. A very conspiratorial friend that is also fixated on random information. Not only that, but Wendigoon organizes his information in a way that it makes it easy for the audience to make connections to see how all of this information gets put together. Like, usually I and many other people on this platform split our videos up into various chapters to organize the content, because not everything can just be presented in one train of thought without it being confusing. But Wendigoon can present a topic like he's telling a story, and it's indicated on how much he enjoys making his videos and talking about the subjects at hand. Usually at the very end of his videos, Wendigoon will just ramble off script, and he will talk about how much he loves talking about, like, the subject matter and all of the niches that went into talking about it. And you can tell that he means it.
I think I stated my feelings on the Mandela catalog pretty conclusively there near the end. I'm a big fan and think it's neat. And hopefully if you've stuck around this long, you think it's neat as well. Really, it's really cool to watch where it's going. I love seeing what Alex does with each episode, because even if I'm right about some details, which I have been, I'll give myself some credit, even when I'm right about details, they are shown in a way I never could have imagined. But this is something that I've known about, obviously me being weird in the way that I am, for a while now, and something I've wanted to talk about for a while. And I thought it deserved a longer video like this, and it deserved its due justice.
But even before the end of the video, you can tell that he enjoys the topic in and of itself by just how much research and work that he puts into the presentation and organization of that information. Like, I have no doubt when other YouTubers talk about their content and how much they love making it, and that this video is their favorite, or whatever. But for content creation and their creators, a lot of it feels really manufactured. YouTube is considered a job to a lot of people. So the concept of having like a favorite video and enjoying making videos seems very fake when every video that you make has to make some sort of revenue. But because of how Wendigoon scripts his videos and the research that he does to present all sides of a topic shows that he really does care about his content. And he puts in so much effort in what he's talking about. In an interview with Mr. Gigi that Wendigoon did on his channel, he claims that his actual favorite video was his analysis of the My Chemical Romance song, The Black Parade.
However, for me, I make a lot of the content because I love to make it. And you referencing the Black Parade video is interesting because I still would say that's one of my favorite videos because it's something that I feel was, I guess, the most original. And even though putting a story for the Black Parade isn't original, it was something that I came up with on my own before I really stepped into the content creation scene.
Which sounds completely random, but it actually makes a lot of sense. When Wendigoon started his channel, a lot of his content was just as random as ever, but he reviewed a lot more movies and video games. So I think in the beginning, Wendigoon's intentions were to limit his content to talk about media specifically. But as he embraced the randomness of his channel and the topics that he talked about, his channel just became this amalgamation of whatever he wanted it to be. And this being his favorite video makes absolute sense to me because it was a time before Wendigoon had to do all of this research behind his videos. Isaiah in his videos always has musical memorabilia behind him. One of his favorite albums is Travis Scott's Astroworld because of the found memories that he has with it. And it's obvious that certain music and media is a passion of Isaiah's. So this video is one I can tell that he gave this presentation on without preparation. He knew the ins and outs of this song and wanted to share that information with everyone else. This video is the antithesis of how his content will be going forward, finding fascination in a topic and presenting that information with a vast audience that might not know the nuances of a topic as well as Isaiah does. It's the same when on the channel he talks about religious topics and Christian folklore. Because Isaiah used to be a Bible studies teacher, this topic already plays a significant part in Isaiah's life. And also, just so I'm not misconstrued, okay? I am not saying that in his earlier content, Wendigoon didn't do any research at all, because I'm sure he does. It's more that the things that he's most passionate about versus the things that he has to look a little more into, because the topic's a bit newer, they are both presented in the same passion. And it's nice because it even shows that even as something as familiar to Wendigoon as like Christian theology, to something more niche that he has to do a little bit more research into, Wendigoon always presents the topics with such an interest that it shows just how much he loves doing what he does. Now, I mentioned that earlier, Wendigoon's presentation is similar to that of like the professor type on YouTube, right? And to explain why this is effective and how his videos come across as informative pieces of media, we need to talk about the controversies that come with the American education system. This is getting pretty intense for a video that's about some dude from Tennessee, but buckle up, because we're gonna talk about it.
This one is the 9 Types of Angels. I'm immediately putting that one up here because I knew that things like cherubims existed, and I knew like the concept of a biblically accurate angel is a thing. I didn't know that the biblically accurate angels were called seraphims, and they had a name, and some of them are wheels, and some of them are multiple eyes, and some of them have wings, and some of them are more human-like, and they're called like cherubims and archangels. Never knew all of that. I think like learning about that, like especially in like biblical theory and even in churches, is like learning that there are different types of angels can kind of establish, like, okay, what angel, like, visited Mary, or what angel was, like, part of this story, and what type of angel is part of this story. It's like, I feel like that would be super cool to theorize about, too, is, like, what angels are what. And I believe in Wendigoon's video, he talks about how he believes Lucifer's, like, a certain type. I believe he said he was, like, a cherub, or an archangel. I don't remember. I thought that theorizing about, like, what angel, like, what major angel figures, like Michael, Gabriel, Lucifer, like, what type of angels there are, is, well, what kind of angels they are. Like, that's kind of an interesting thought, too. Backrooms. Okay, so I feel like the backrooms, by the time that, like, Wendigoon made his video, the backrooms kind of got ruined for me. And this isn't Isaiah's fault. I'm not saying he should have rushed the video and made it at the moment that the backrooms were cool or anything. Like, take your time, let him cook. But by the time the backrooms came out for me, there was already so many, like, video games and memes about the subject that I was just like, I don't necessarily find this appealing. It was cool when it started out, don't get me wrong, because it was like, it was a very well done video series, honestly. But by the time that Isaiah got around to it, it was just like, it had been memed to death, and it wasn't really that scary anymore. And the concept of backrooms is so expansive to a point it gets super fucking ridiculous. Like, there's a whole, like, website that explains the 100 layers of the backrooms, and there's even more layers, and it's all, like, dude, I liked it when it was just the simple, funny video of a dude phasing out of reality for a second. So I'm gonna put that at this one. The tragic, deadly cover-up of Vincent van Gogh. I'm a huge fan of Vincent van Gogh. Vincent van Gogh is up there in terms of, like, my niche little subjects that I love to learn everything about. One of my wishes at some point is to go to the Vincent van Gogh art exhibit at the DIA. I have yet to do that, and I would really love to do that. I heard it's kind of expensive to do, but I would still, if we can make that a little date, me and my boyfriend, to go do that, I think that would be cool. I didn't really know that there was any sort of conspiracy around Vincent van Gogh's death, to be honest. Which is funny coming from the person that loves to learn everything about him because he's, like, my favorite artist. It's just interesting to think that he didn't really kill himself. And that kind of gives me hope, because he's always been painted as this artist who was essentially a failure, right? Who really didn't really make his dreams of being a great artist. And then he just decided to end it all and not continue more of his works. But the fact that this kind of does paint it as he was kind of successful and he was getting himself out there, and then he was, like, murdered, is, like, that is hopeful to me. It gives me a lot of hope, because it means that Vincent, by the end of his life, wasn't as, like, super depressed as everyone thought he was. So I'm gonna put that right here. All right. Let me explain. So listen, okay. I really liked this video. I did finish it all the way through. And Isaiah, I want you to know this is nothing against you. It's not because you're boring or anything. It really isn't. Sometimes when I can't go to sleep, I will listen to YouTube videos at night. And because you make long enough content, and because that Dante's Inferno video is super long, I just so happen to fall asleep to him. I don't know, something about a dude explaining Dante's Inferno to me, it just puts me into sleepy mode. Thank you for providing me with great slumber, I appreciate it. Actually, you know what, I might as well just put all of them here, because they all, at some point, have put me to bed. These are all videos that I just kind of turn on in the background and be like, I'm just gonna fall asleep to these. I have finished all of these, by the way. These are all great videos. I swear, if you don't do what I do and don't fall asleep to them, they are great videos, great amounts of entertainment. Don't do what I do. Don't just fall asleep. Actually learn something. Open up your third eye. This one is about the paranormal investigators behind the Conjuring series. I don't remember what their names are. I should probably know what that is. Oh, the Warrens. Yeah, Lorraine and Ed Warren. I remember that now. I kind of already knew about, like, the Warrens a little bit. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that they're full of shit, and I kind of already knew that going in. It's not like this video really taught me anything new. It's a good video. Don't get me wrong. It's just, you know, something about, like, IRL demon possessions are just kind of to me. They make me feel away. They make me feel kind of ick, so I'm gonna put it right here. I guess I should re-explain this here. These are videos that either, like, they can be one of three things, right? It's either they gave me a bad vibe, I thought they were good, but I would not go back and rewatch them, or I just didn't feel anything at all. So that's what these are at. This one, I'm gonna put right oh, it's kind of hard. Because I knew what Frankenstein was going in. But by the time that fucking Wendigoon explained what the hell that story was, I was like, oh, I get it now. I'm gonna put that here. Listen, I am pissed at myself, okay? I am not pissed at the story of Frankenstein. I am pissed at myself. Because Frankenstein was one of the stories in high school that I got really excited to read because it's like gothic horror, right? Like, it's up there in terms of like scary books, like scary gothic horror stories that I was really into. Like, I was also super into like creepypastas in middle school. So like going from like creepypasta kid to going into real actual like literature that was like horror themed. I'm talking like the Edgar Allan Poe's, the H.P. Lovecraft's, like stuff like that is when I was actually getting into real literature. And by the time I was reading Frankenstein, because of the way it was fucking written, and I don't know if I just have terrible like reading comprehension skills, but good God, I was so mad because I wanted to like this story and I wanted to like everything about it. I could not get into it because of the way it was written in like fucking the oldies way. And I was just like, dude, what the fuck is happening? Because this is supposed to be a story of like what makes a monster, what makes a man. And all the whole time, I'm just sitting there, I'm just trying to sit here, trying to read this thing like, Arth Doubt? What the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? So I was just really mad at myself because like this is supposed to be the gothic horror book that is actually super cool and that I actually liked, and I didn't. And then finally like Wendigoon made his video and explained the whole thing and also informed me that Junji Ito apparently makes a really good adaptation of this book, which I now need to get my hands on because Mary Shelley can go fuck herself for fucking confusing me with her dumb book. Junji Ito can show me pretty little pictures and then I can understand what's going on. Alright, so this one is the video that TikTok audio that kind of went viral came from, of Wendigoon being like, if you don't think the FBI wouldn't do something like this, oh yes they would. This is the video about how the FBI faked being vampires to take over the Philippines. I'm gonna put that right here. I love video propaganda against the FBI. Okay, so this one is basically just a Halloween special, I think, of Wendigoon talking about his fear of the ocean. I'm gonna put that right here because Wendigoon's a little bitch. No, okay, I'm not trying to, like, make anyone feel bad about their fear of the ocean. Personally, I don't get it. I don't get it. The ocean is just too cool for me. Recently I went to the aquarium with my boyfriend, and there was some really cool creatures in there. That we saw eels, we saw sharks, we saw fucking sea turtles, and I cried because they were so cute, and I loved them, and they were amazing. I love sea turtles. Yes, I'm the basic white bitch that wants to save the turtles. Leave me alone. And even like deep sea creatures. Like, do you want to know what my favorite deep sea creature is? Do you want to know? That is the big fin squid. And it straight up looks like an alien nightmare, but I love him. He looks like he's constantly T-posing, and it's my favorite thing ever. I find the deep ocean more fascinating than I do terrifying. This one is All Quiet on the Western Front, which recently got a Netflix, what do they call that? Like a remake? Adaptation? Something? Anyways, I'm sure it's shit because most remakes are of old media. Here's a controversial opinion, and I might get some shit for this. I feel like more people, I don't think in schools necessarily, like, and maybe in high school, should watch All Quiet on the Western Front, because I feel like there's like a general misconception about, like, especially about like the time periods between the first war we had within the first like century. So like wars like the War of Independence to the Civil War to World War I to World War II. I feel like there's like this misconception that everyone just was like, war is cool. Like up until the 50s, everyone was like, war is really cool and we love war. War is fun. We just do it all the time. We just get into wars for no reason. And All Quiet on the Western Front was probably one of the first like anti-war propagandist films, and it was during like World War II, where literally everyone was just like, this is the most important part in human history, and this is the one film that came out during that time that was like, no, war bad. And I feel like there should be way more movies about war bad, because war bad, no longer human. I have rewatched this video a lot, and the reason why is because, one, it's about Junji Ito, which is like my favorite fucking author of all time. You will see that later. And also, I know that there's like an original like book adaptation about this story. But the fact that it's accompanied with Junji Ito illustrations immediately puts it right up there on actually learning something, because I did learn something. I learned that the story existed, and I learned that Junji Ito adapted it. and I learned that the book was awesome. Those are the 3 things I learned, and I also learned that I need to add it to my collection.
In the last few election terms, there has been a big contention on the American education system. More specifically, the concerns by parents on what is and what isn't being taught in schools. And this isn't a conversation that we haven't had before. The conversation of what should and shouldn't be in schools spans back forever, as parents have been arguing against certain topics like LGBTQ topics, religious lessons, practical uses outside of the classroom, evolution, certain parts of history, and the list goes on and on and on. And regardless on the political climates that surround certain topics taught in schools, newer studies are showing that for the most part, parents are not happy with what is involved in the current American education system. On top of lack of resources and funding that makes it hard to teach in general, another trend with our current state of teaching is that not only are parents not happy, but kids are just not interested in learning anymore. I've seen this from a lot of teachers on TikTok that are having issues getting kids to actually be active in their education.
If you would just get up and teach them instead of handing them a freaking packet, yo. There's kids in here who don't learn like that. They need to learn face to face. You're just getting mad because I'm pointing out the obvious and you're just wasting my time. No, I'm not wasting your time. I'm telling you what you need to do. You want kids to come into your class, you want them to get excited for this, you gotta come in here, you gotta make them excited. You want a kid to change and start doing better, you gotta touch his freaking heart. Can't expect a kid to change if all you do is just tell him.
And it seems the more time goes by and the faster the current climate of the world is, with social media and our resources being at our fingertips, it seems that kids' brains are moving so fast that regular academia isn't interesting anymore. School is becoming more of just an obstacle that you have to endure from the ages 5 to 17, and that is a good majority of your childhood that you're spending in school, and kids are just not satisfied with learning anymore. So we have helicopter parents that are just constantly hovering over the education system, not wanting their kids to learn certain things. We have kids getting the blandest education curriculum because of their parents' disapproval and lack of funding. We also have other important factors like lack of parental involvement. And although that sounds like I just repeated myself, I mean this more for marginalized and lower income communities having a lack of say in their high school curriculum that values higher class majority communities. Also, schools are just nothing but endless homework and after school learning that requires a lot of just teaching yourself. So it feels like teachers don't even teach anymore and they just put the majority of the learning responsibilities on the students. And on top of that, school teaches so much useless shit that doesn't have any real world applications in anything. So that leaves us with kids being bored of school, teachers being bullied to teach a certain way, parents constantly being dissatisfied and confused with what their kids are being taught, and the school's funding being pulled by the chunk loads, to the point that most schools are closing in mass. The American school system is fucked. To know how fucked it is, we're gonna need to talk about Florida, aka hell. Ron DeSantis is a pretty divisive figure for many reasons. Whether you like Ron DeSantis or not, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, I don't really think that's the main focus here. I think regardless on where you are in the political spectrum, some of the things that Ron has been passing recently in regards to the education system should leave everybody concerned, because basically anything can be leveled up to a felony charge for some reason. For example, the now coined Don't Say Gay bill that was signed into law where teachers wouldn't be allowed to discuss any LGBTQ topics in schools, which I mean would be an understandable bill if teachers were teaching, kindergartners the sexual side of the LGBTQ community. Except that's not what's happening at all. What this bill effectively does is give no nuance for teachers who they themselves might be gay, or students who come from gay families. It leaves no wiggle room. You're just not allowed to bring it up at all. Now, the grade range cutoff is from pre-K to 3rd grade, so once you're into high school, it's not like you're not allowed to talk about this stuff because well, high school is when you would explore your gender and sexuality more. That's when you're a teenager, that's when you're going through puberty, that would make sense. But I think for the most part, with students coming from gay families, or teachers themselves being in gay relationships, there is an age-appropriate way to talk about LGBTQ and recognize these families and the kids that come from these families, and teach the classmates that they go to school with every day that their family is just as normal as their families. And that it's important for these kids to understand that in our real world, these things exist and they should be normal. Unfortunately, I don't think Ron DeSantis believes that there is an age-appropriate way to talk about LGBTQ topics. In fact, what Ron has gone on to say is that teaching kids tolerance for things that might be different from the standard white picket fence Christian family is essentially indoctrination. But if you ask me, I would call what Ron does next more in the steps of indoctrination than teaching kids to accept gay people. More recently with Ron's HB 1467. This calls for the removal of all books from classrooms until the newly appointed academic board of directors he installed can approve these books for the students' curriculum. This followed up with book bans en masse, with the following books being banned: Before She Was Harriet, Dumpling Soup, Fried Bread, A Native American Family Story, The Gift of Ramadan, My Two Dads and Me, and My Two Moms and Me, Black Frontiers, A History of African American Heroes in the Old West, I Am Jazz, The Life of Rosa Parks, Stonewall, A Building, An Uprising, A Revolution, The Hate You Give, Genderqueer, All Boys Aren't Blue, and for some reason, 53 math textbooks were also pulled off shelves. Now, listen, not to confuse you with the reason why Ron would ban a bunch of books that, just so happen to have a lot of African American topics. This is a directive from his Stop Woke Act. Banning these books doesn't have anything to do with Ron being a racist. Oh, no. It's because these books aren't age appropriate for kids to learn, and a lot of these books are tied to gender and queer history, which Ron doesn't think is age appropriate, as we've already discussed. So that's why he's banning African American history and books. Not because those books happen to have minorities in them, but because they're LGBTQ books. Not because there's people of color in them. Although, again, with his culture war going against equity and inclusive values, Ron also wants to ban CRT. He also wants to ban inclusivity and equity learning from schools funded by taxpayers' money. So that basically includes all public schools and all community colleges.
New College of Florida has become the new target of Governor Ron DeSantis and his culture war. He thinks that because the school is funded by state taxpayers, the school ought to have a conservative identity. A conservative Christian identity. And to carry out this mission, Governor DeSantis has appointed 6 new members to the new college's board of trustees, including Christopher Rufo, a conservative activist who has led the battle against critical race theory in public schools across the U.S., and Matthew Spalding, the dean of Hillsdale College, a conservative Christian school that is serving as a model for DeSantis's plan to take over higher education in the state of Florida.
One of the items that I discussed today with Governor DeSantis and with legislators present is that diversity, equity, and inclusion, which sounds great, but in practice divides people and offers separate judgments on the basis of race and identity. My opinion does matter, actually, unfortunately for you.
This also includes things like AP African American Studies.
We want education, not indoctrination. This course on Black history, what's one of the lessons about? Queer theory. Now, who would say that an important part of Black history is queer theory? That is somebody pushing an agenda on our kids. And so when you look to see they have stuff about intersectionality, abolishing prisons, that's a political agenda.
So it's either Ron is a raging homophobe or he's a racist. Like, excuse me, Ronnie, pick a struggle, please. Now, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, right? And I'm not trying to make connections where there isn't any or try to be disrespectful. But The first thing that the Nazis did when they came to power and became a driving force in Germany was to burn all information about diversity and LGBTQ topics or anything that went against the Nazis' narrative. Things like the Hitler Youth and getting rid of all diversity training were things that the Nazis did to basically teach all Germany one way of learning and thinking. It's stuff like what the Nazis did is the reason why a lot of our LGBTQ history is so unknown today. A lot of the reason why we think this wave of LGBTQ acceptance and liberation is so new is because it actually spans back all throughout history. But because LGBTQ history keeps getting burned and destroyed, effectively erasing our existence, not a lot of people know about it, which is why people are afraid of all these new things coming out of the LGBTQ despite the fact it's been in our history for years. But to stray away from Florida specifically, let's make a more broad perspective to put everything in simpler terms, to understand from an overall example of how fucked the school system is in America, and not just in like Florida, aka hell. From like 1st grade to 12th grade, you are given your core courses of study: math, science, social studies, language arts, and English. There are many different types of math: algebra, geometry, calculus, trigonometry, arithmetic. But because all of these studies require you to work with numbers and to arrange those numbers to solve for different probabilities, all of these subjects of math will all feel really similar to each other to the point that it's all just algebra after a while. Especially if you're not interested in math. And if you are interested in math, then maybe what I said was like really offensive to you somehow. But like, you were bullied for a reason. Geometry is literally just algebra with squares. Trigonometry is just algebra with triangles. Calculus is crack algebra, and arithmetic is diet algebra. And if anything I just said offended anyone out there, all I have to say is that you are a nerd, get over yourself. Science has a vast amount of subjects: chemistry, physics, biology, astronomy, geology, earth science, biochem. Science is the only subject that has any real-world application and yet has a significant amount of underfunding. Like, all of the system suffers from underfunding, especially the arts, because, school hates creativity for some reason. Although huge amounts of funding goes into the sciences of the real world outside of schools, in schools, not so much. My guess is that it's because of helicopter parents that don't approve of certain sciences, whether that be, for religious purposes or for personal beliefs, that interfere with their child's education on the sciences. Not to mention that, science textbooks are always outdated by, 5 to 10 years. So, that's great. Then we have English and language arts, reading and writing, basically the same subject. Although the amount of books are endless, and so are the lessons that can be derived from these books, because of strict curriculum and the uptick of banning books that we just talked about, especially in Florida, which is ranked the 2nd in the most banned books in the United States. The same books that keep being reused and reread over and over means that future students will be reading Of Mice and Men or To Kill a Mockingbird for forever. And look, it's not like these books are bad or anything, it's just that they are massively mistranslated today than from how the original author intended the book to be. But because of book banning and one-way perspectives, there's only one way to interpret these books, to the point that everyone knows the conclusions of these stories before they even read them. Like, the 3 books that I actually found some enjoyment in that actually stood out to me when I was growing up and I was in school were A Mango-Shaped Space, which I read in 8th grade, Persepolis, which I believe I read in 10th grade, and The Last Book in the Universe, which I read in 8th grade. And 2 of those 3 books that I just mentioned are now banned from schools. So fuck me, I guess. And finally, and the one that is the most contested, social studies. Now, social studies gets slept on a lot because social studies is fascinating, but it has the same problem as language arts, but it's way worse. In social studies, there are different subjects like history, civics, economics, psychology, political science, law, and criminology. But oftentimes these subjects are cut out of schools altogether, and you're only really left with civics, history, and maybe psychology, sometimes. And that's kind of it. And distinctively, the one part of social studies that gets set in teaching, no matter what subject of social studies you take from the grades 1 through 12, you will most definitely be given at least a week or 3 weeks of learning about World War II every single year without fail. Of course, I'm speaking from like a personal experience with the school system. Every single year, we have a section of learning about World War II. For a lot of kids, the World War II section of our curriculum was their favorite part. Not just because we got to watch like World War II documentaries the whole time, but also because like war is cool and interesting. And I don't have a problem with learning about World War II every grade year. Relearning history so that we aren't doomed to repeat it. And I completely understand that sentiment, but the problem is, we're already doing that again. Also, doesn't it get boring after several years? Most people know more about World War II than they do World War I. Most people didn't even know that World War I even happened at all. That's how shadowed it is in comparison to the weeks spent learning about World War II. Seriously, doesn't it get boring to learn about who Hitler was over and over again? Now, where does Wendigoon like fit in all of this rambling that I just did? Nowhere, actually. He's actually nowhere within this mess of a system. He's actually beyond all of this. He's completely outside of the system entirely. He is the non-binary of the education system.
Every time two people may be developing some form of a bond, there's a 50-year-old man at the back of the boat like, fuck out my way when you see me. I'm rolling with the LGBT. Fuck out my way when you see me. I'm rolling with the LGBT.
Because instead of learning about like the Axis powers and the Allies and the D-Day invasion and Hiroshima and all of that, wouldn't it be more entertaining to learn about the spy that worked for the Axis and Ally powers and single-handedly trolled the Nazis so bad that it effectively won the entire war? Doesn't that sound way more interesting or entertaining? Or how about instead of learning about World War I and how Hitler's involvement radicalized him into starting the Nazi party, wouldn't it be more entertaining and more crazy to learn about how fucking insane Archduke Franz Ferdinand's assassination actually was? Wouldn't that be more interesting?
hey everyone, today we are talking about the funniest thing in the world, people dying.
Instead of learning about the same war battles over and over again, like the D-Day invasion, the Bay of Pigs, the Battle of Gettysburg, wouldn't it be more interesting to learn about the war that only lasted 38 minutes?
That most often points brother against brother in a horrific conflict that leaves families and lives broken, and most often ends with the victor standing atop the ashes they created, hoping that more men will not come along and do the same tragedies that they committed. So now that I said that, I can make fun of it.
Instead of learning about Martin Luther King and how he was the greatest social movement leader of all time, wouldn't it be more interesting to learn about how the FBI actually was responsible for killing Martin Luther King Jr. in Minecraft? I want to preface this by saying this is all a complete joke, by the way. I am sound of mind. I do not wish to harm myself. However, the King family didn't think that James Earl Ray actually did it, and then sued the US government for only $100 to prove that James Earl Ray was not responsible for assassinating MLK, and that it was in fact the FBI who was literally writing letters to King to himself. Isn't this a hilarious joke, guys? Please laugh. The education system only allows students to learn the core subjects in one way. Never to think outside of the box and learn things outside of their whitewashed, preconceived history that is one-sided and shows no nuances. And I'm not even talking about, like, learning both sides of the Holocaust or some shit. Actually, that was proposed in, Texas and, not in Florida, but, fuck, you could have fooled me. But more so, not learning about people like Garbo the Spy, or the antics of the Franz Ferdinand assassination, or whatever else that you can actually learn about from Wendigoon. And the way that he teaches these niche things is a combination of his presentation and the variety of his content. his talent to organize and to teach a subject, but what's most apparent is Wendigoon's passion and hyperfixations on niche subject matter that he likes to share with his audience. And he uses these niche interests to entice a hyperfixated audience that is yearning for different education than they got from when they were in school. And I think that is the reason why videos like his do so well.
Now, this next one, before we even talk about it, I need to preface this by saying, I am of sound mind, alright? I do not wish to harm myself, as well as everything I am about to say is all jokes in Discord, alright? With that all being said, the FBI killed Martin Luther King!
In other words, the effects of soy has caused permanent damage to the human population that cannot be reversed, and the influence of soy products on humanity will lead to a totalitarian femboy empire. You're welcome.
Excuse me, Mr. Man. You're in my spot. Mr. Man, how am I supposed to record in these conditions? You can't be sitting there. I'm gonna have to move you. You.
ほう、向かってくるのか。逃げずにこのディオに近づいてくるのか。
You can sit on my lap. You can sit on...
せっかく祖父のジョセフが私のザワールドの正体を。
Like this. See? No?
Aww. One thing that I've pointed out already about Isaiah is that when he talks about his appreciation and love for the content that he makes, I honestly believe him when he says it. I'm sure a lot of people who put in more effort in their content, more than Wendigoon, admittedly, and has more subscribers than he does, I'm sure that those people are just as passionate about their channels and their content as well. But somehow I just feel like it's different for Isaiah. Like, it just feels different for me. When he goes off script, when he just sits in front of a camera and talks to his subscribers at the end of every video, he talks about how fascinated he was in the thing he just got done talking about. And a lot of the things that he talks about have a personal connection with him already, through either his religion or his experiences in the Appalachian area. But when it comes to things like outside of both of those key points of connection, the videos that he makes that are solely based on his key interest in learning something new and sharing it with others. And with the amount of research that he has done and how much he loves researching the topics that he presents on his channel, you can tell that he is fixated on the idea of sharing and learning more. He's recently had fans share ideas for his videos that he picks and chooses what catches his attention. And I think his audience shares this same fixation on learning all about new aspects and niche things. Both Isaiah and his audience share this key interest in the underground, the niche, the bottom of the iceberg. When I found Wendigoon's channel, he was almost complete with his conspiracy theory iceberg series. And together, all of the layers take up about 10 hours of total length. And when the complete video series came out, I sat down and watched the whole thing. But I could only do it in parts because it's 10 hours long. And Isaiah's original video series was done in parts as well. And you would think if you were to watch the entire iceberg playlist, watch either all of the parts or the 10-hour compilation, you would think that you would notice at a certain point when Wendigoon seems either worn out or tired of the subject or just burnt out on the topic, but he doesn't. That passion to non-stop talk and teach and learn all about these conspiracies in this long list that took him months to go through. And yet, not at a single point does Wendigoon seem bored. I mean, I'm sure he takes breaks in between videos, but even when he wasn't working on his conspiracy theory iceberg list, he was making a fucking movie! The dude is so dedicated, it feels like old content creators from back then, before YouTube became a money pit, when people were just passionate about making things. What was so worrying about Wendigoon's channel, especially when he was first starting to make content? When he was making the conspiracy theory iceberg series, he also was making a lot of different iceberg videos on top of that. One of the first videos that I watched that got me interested in Wendigoon stuff is one that I'm sure everyone has seen by now, because it was the one that blew up on his channel, and that was the disturbing movie Iceberg.
Oh boy.
Which, unsurprisingly, is actually one of Isaiah's least favorite videos. Now, I say unsurprisingly because from the beginning of the Wendigoon channel, there has always been a sense of randomness that I think Isaiah wanted to embrace. But when he started making iceberg content, he became known as the iceberg guy, which was worrisome because I think Isaiah wanted to talk about whatever he wanted to in whatever way he wanted to. He got me ice cream. I'm really happy. And now that his most popular videos that attracted the majority of his audience was these well-structured videos, and although the structure of content is good for learning new niche information in an organized way of sorts, from the most known knowledge to the most niche information, I don't think it's the videos that Isaiah wanted to do forever. And I don't know if it's a YouTube miracle or if the algorithm was just really nice to Wendigoon, but it seems even though he took a leap off from his most popular content into making whatever he wanted, his channel stayed strong. And I would argue it has grown faster since then. And I think part of that also has to do with Reddit.
Hello.
Hi.
What's up?
And he's pulling his cock out! That was a huge reason why Wendigoon popped off as hard as he did. And when I really thought about the nature of Reddit and how interconnected it is with Wendigoon's content, I realized that the reason why Reddit loves this guy so much is because, well, one, the meme material that Isaiah makes on the daily, and two, the Wendigoon channel feels like Reddit in a weird way. To explain what I mean by this, when I say that Wendigoon feels like Reddit but the YouTube channel, I need to kind of explain what Reddit is. Reddit is a topic board website. It is organized into various categories, or forums that people can join in and talk about whatever they want. If there's a topic you're interested in, there is most definitely a Reddit board for it. It's like Rule 34, because that's a fair comparison, right? No, it's probably not. I don't know why I thought it would be. Okay, so for the old fucks that still don't understand what Reddit is and feels as if I gave a bad example, think of it like this. You know Facebook groups? Well, take that, but it's the entire website. God damn it, Reddit's gonna catch on that I'm not a degenerate. Fuck. Okay, so as we've established, this is not going well. Regardless, I feel like every comment section of a Wendigoon video is like a different Reddit board. Everyone is talking about different shit and how interesting the topic was, and I think that's what made the connection for me. Outside of the topics that Isaiah talks about, there's also the fact that the diversity feels like it's going into a new discussion topic every upload. And I think that's what makes the audience feel more connected and involved in the conversation and in the community. It's because everyone is learning something new. And I think that's the power of learning. And I think that's the power of learning that is something that is missing from most education platforms. It's something that a lot of these education platforms try to aim for, but they never really achieve. And I think it's because when people learn about new stuff, they want to collaborate and share that with others, not just to learn it in a lesson plan and then move on. And don't get me wrong, people like learning through independent study, but it's the group collaboration of learning new things from each other that is even more engaging. I mean, even when it's not something history related, like when Wendigoon talks about ARGs or movies, it still feels like you're learning something new. And part of that has to do with how Isaiah connects the topics of his videos to something relatable. Wendigoon made a video recently on Skinamarink, a film that came out very recently that is a bit more experimental than the horror that we've been used to in Hollywood especially. And in the middle of the video, Isaiah pauses and talks about how the movie invoked a fear that I never thought of before. But when he said it, suddenly I thought, oh, wow, I've felt that too. Watch this.
When I was about 6 years old, I think I was 6 about to turn 7. There was one night that I had fallen asleep in the living room of the house with my parents and sisters, and whenever I had woken up, no one was there. So whenever I woke up in the middle of the night, it was just me in an empty house, a very dark and empty house. And up until that point in my life, and I would say most of us would probably relate to this, there was never a moment where I was absolutely alone. And most of us probably weren't up until that age in our life, and we don't really think about it. But even if you were, say, alone in a room or alone in part of your house, there was someone else somewhere else in your house. You know, children don't typically get left completely on their lonesome. So I had never been, at least to my knowledge, alone, or at least conscious of being alone, and especially not at night in an empty house. And I remember waking up to just absolute darkness and calling out for mom and dad and no one answering. So I began to work my way through the house, through rooms that were normally filled with people and I was normally familiar with, but now, alone at night, they seemed completely different. Everything seemed alien. And I remember walking around the couch and through the kitchen, and the counters were so much taller than me. And for some reason, I didn't know. I'd never really seen horror movies or knew much of monsters at that point in my life. I was afraid for the first time of what lurked around the corner. What would happen whenever I turned around the side of the couch and was staring down a dark hallway? What would be at the end of it? And I walked through the house, and it was dark. I remember hearing some noises like the creaking of the floorboard. It was windy outside. I remember stepping outside to see if I could see anyone, and it was just the porch light and the nothingness of the forest around me, just staring into an empty woods. And I go back inside, and I remembered that I just started crying. And you can think of me as a wuss or whatever. I was also 6, keep in mind. But I just started crying, not because I thought any specific monster was going to come for me, not because I thought I was, in any immediate danger, but it was because everything that I was so familiar with was gone for some reason. I was in the same house. I was in the same rooms. I should be comfortable with where I am, but I wasn't, and that scared me.
The feeling of the familiar becoming unfamiliar. I remember exactly the moment that also happened to me. And oddly enough, it was around the same time I started watching Wendigoon's content. So I moved out in 2021 with my boyfriend, who you've seen on the channel. Shameless plug. And it was our first apartment together, and it was a 2-bedroom apartment, 2-bath. Way too expensive for us. We weren't making enough money, clearly. But it was our very first place together. And at that point, I had been solely living with my mom since I was 19. But, during the pandemic, I meet this nice guy. We're talking about seeing a future together. And we buy our first apartment together at the age of 20 years old. And I just gotta say, that experience of buying an apartment is so much scarier than you think it is. It's exciting, of course it is, but also spending that first night in someplace that you're supposed to nest and call your new home, but still feeling very attached to your old house, especially since I was living with my mom, who I'm very attached to, that was hard. That was really hard. And what sucks is that even though we tried to embellish that apartment with furniture was just too expensive. Our first apartment, was empty. In our entire time living at that first apartment, we were only able to fill up the 1 bedroom out of the 2 bedrooms, and then both the bathrooms, and that was it. The big main room, the living room and the kitchen, for the most part, remained empty. And it was because, 1, shit was expensive, and 2, it was just because we worked all the time, so we didn't really spend a whole lot of time in the apartment anyway, so it didn't really feel necessary to fill it up with anything. And I mean, we did try to buy furniture, we did try, but nothing really felt like it was home. And I always try to tell myself, home is wherever he's at, because I love him and I care about him, but I missed my mom. And even though I got used to living there for the 10 months that I did stay there, even though the place felt familiar to me after 10 months, it still felt foreign to me. It felt like I didn't belong there. Sometimes I would visit my mom, and I would go back to her house and spend the night, and even though my room was emptied out, even though I didn't really have a bedroom at my mom's house anymore, that didn't matter, because my mom's house still felt like more of a home than my own apartment did. At least that first apartment. And I feel like the reason why is because I was just kind of afraid to step outside of the room that I already decorated. I spent most of the majority of my time in that apartment, in that room, because that was the room I was able to embellish with furniture and call it my own little space. But the rest of the apartment felt foreign. It felt scary. And it felt like I never really belonged in it. It felt like me and Alex didn't fit there. Now, we've moved into this new apartment last year in March, and it's gonna be a year living here, and I'm gonna be honest, I have never felt more at home here. I mean, yeah, it's a bit of a downgrade because we only have like 1 bath and 1 bedroom now, but it's enough space that I can at least call it my home. And I feel like part of that has to do with the fact that my mom's house was also super small, so it felt more homey for my place to also be just as small. And even though I go back to my parents' house every once in a while just to visit, just to see them, and I would come back here, right? No matter how often my mom's house changed, it always still felt like it was home. Our last apartment never really felt that way, but this one does, and I actually have preferred staying here a lot more than my old place, and even a lot more than my folks' place sometimes, because it's my little place. This place has never felt foreign to me. It's never felt like all of a sudden this place is new and scary. This place has always felt like home. But when I was living in that old apartment, I always felt foreign to it. Everything in that apartment was too big and too scary. Every little creak was a nightmare. And ironically enough, around the time that I was living in that old apartment, I was watching Wendigoon videos. And in that time of living in that big empty space with nothing to fill it, I was watching his content and I felt better. I felt better. In a place where I felt like I never really truly belonged, I at least had him to entertain me. I used to work at a job where I worked like afternoon to night shifts, so I would come home really late at night. And even though the topics that Wendigoon talks about were like on the horror side, I never felt afraid at night. I actually looked forward to the night because then I could come home and just watch his content and then feel less foreign and isolated in this apartment that's so empty. In that time, the apartment felt full because I was watching content that I loved from someone that I didn't even think would like tap into my keen interest as much as he did, but he did. And I don't think that I've thought about this fear all that much until Wendigoon made his video. And it made me kind of think about something kind of relevant and related to what he just said. And it made me feel like I get it. And listen, I can understand that like being a relatable YouTuber or having a YouTuber that is like, it really hits home for me and is super relatable can be kind of like cringy, or it can be just like a fad or something. Like when I say, oh, this YouTuber's super relatable to me, I relate to them, and people are like, that's weird as shit, parasocial much? Like, what the fuck? But I swear it's not, and I think for Wendigoon, it works here. Wendigoon is just such a relatable person to me. He was inspired by the same content creators as myself to make YouTube videos. And both of us are, conveniently enough, really into Junji Ito, which, by the way, stay there. Hold on. Hey, Isaiah, you want to hook me up? Yeah, so, Isaiah, if you want to talk to me about Junji Ito stuff, I could talk your ear off for hours. Or Tekken lore, whichever one you want to do. And what's crazy, too, is that we both started doing YouTube on our iPhones. I mean, he's upgraded since then, and, he doesn't record on an iPhone anymore. I record on an iPhone 14 and not an iPhone 8. That's an upgrade, right? Wendigoon has been inspired to just whip out his iPhone and make whatever videos he wanted. And it started with people like Mr. Gigi and Critical and other content creators before him. And now it's being passed down to me. I didn't make content for a while, and it's mainly because of the long period of burnout that I had, and also like working dead-end jobs that I hated. And at that point in my life, I accepted the fact that working dead-end jobs would basically be the rest of my life. But I see someone like Isaiah blow up overnight, but still stay humble, and I can't help but think like, why did I quit? I know my channel and its content is stagnant right now, and I'm not looking to like blow up like right away at the same time Wendigoon did anytime soon, but I did want to build a community. I wanted to build something from the ground up and be self-dependent and love what I do. I don't want to be a YouTuber. I want to be a Wendigoon, whatever that is. I want to be a guy that just did it for fun and taught me something. And I know that sounds silly, but I think there really is a difference between people like Wendigoon and other content creators on YouTube. I don't think other YouTube creators have given me a point of reference of what I aim to achieve in my own community and content than what Wendigoon has managed to do and how he has managed to inspire me. And sure, there is a lot of other creators that also have inspired me, but Wendigoon taught me that being relatable and being an inspiration is okay. And it's not cringy to want my audience to walk away feeling something. Look, I understand I'm making stupid videos on the internet. I get that. But I want my videos to at least try and make someone feel something. And if not for anybody else, I at least want my content to make me feel something. I want my videos to make me feel satisfied. And I think I've reached a point in my content where a lot of improvements can still be made, but overall, I'm satisfied. I know a lot of different content creators online makes a lot of people feel this way. This sort of like comfort character for them. And I guess Wendigoon is mine, I guess. I guess I wouldn't say that he's like a comfort character, more of like my fun conspiracy theorist character. Look, listen, I swear, none of this is parasocial, I promise you. And maybe a video overanalyzing someone who makes goofy videos on the internet is a bit weird, all things considered. But thanks for watching anyway. And if at the very least you found at least some value to my random ramblings about some dude online, then genuinely, thanks for listening to me ramble for 30 minutes. It's probably going to be well over 30 minutes, let's be honest. Every single video of mine is at this point. If you guys would like me to hyper-analyze a comfort character of yours, then maybe I'll talk about like Markiplier or something, I don't fucking know. The thing I hope most to achieve with this video is to show people that that era of content creators that genuinely care about the things that they make, that era before YouTube became a job, those creators still exist, and they inspire me. And I really hope that Wendigoon inspires you too. I mean, he's inspired me so much that I'm starting to look like him, so. It's not parasocial, I swear. And you know what's so nice about talking about like a content creator I actually genuinely love instead of like talking about like controversies and stuff and things I genuinely like just that are negative, right? Talking about something that I actually genuinely like has gotten me inspired to talk about other things that I like. Like I would love to make a whole ass video on this guy in particular. So if you guys want to see stuff like that where I'm more positive on the channel, you should like and subscribe. And maybe if you want to subscribe to my Patreon, that would be great. Definitely subscribe to the Patreon because it would definitely help make more content like this. Also, I have art commissions open. I can do some Junji Ito inspired art for you guys because I'm sure I can like replicate the style if you want. Anyways, commission form is linked in the description below. Thanks to everyone who decided to tune in to watch this random person on the internet ramble about a parasocial relationship while dressed as the person that she's obsessed over, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. I have to take this off now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not looking forward to it because it's gonna hurt so bad. I look sexy though with a beard, not gonna lie. Alright, time to rip this off. Oh god, this is gonna suck. Oh, it's just, the worst part is that I think it's in my hair. Ow. 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 This is why I hate latex. This hurts. Thing is, right, I don't know where the fuck this thing is attached to. I think I used too much latex in one spot and now it's just glued to my, ow. Yeah, it's like attached to my hair. Well, time to shave my head off. I don't know what to do. I gotta cut it off or something. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. Well, next time you'll see me, I'll probably be bald. I don't know where the fuck to cut. That's the problem. You see that? It's this part of my scalp. And that's all, I think, like, hair and scalp And if I try to pull it off, I think I'm gonna pull my scalp off. So that's fun. Okay, I did it. But as you can see, the latex is still very much in my hair and I had to cut like a chunk out. So now I'm gonna take a shower, bye.